Gandhi said there were 7 things that were going to destroy us. Wealth without work. People that want to invest in a hedge fund, do nothing but put their money there, no risk. If it fails, they get bailed out by taxpayers. This has to end, and the only way it can end is by a populace that's vigilant, a citizenry that actually reads and knows what's going on. And that's why entertainment and dumbing people down and keeping them from thinking about these things, as long as that continues on, as long as people are more concerned about what's going on the reality television show they're obsessed with, or who won this, that, or the other game, as long as they're entertained by those things, the wolves out there are going to keep eating the sheep. Wealth without work, pleasure without conscience. We live in a society where sexuality now has become a technique. You buy a book to learn how to become a good lover. There's websites now for cheaters.com, where married couples can find other married couples that want to commit adultery. What's happened to our society, people? You can't sit around and just think these things are normal. These are terrible signs. Pleasure without conscience, without thinking of the repercussions of what happens when you pursue pleasure without any moral compunction. Knowledge without character, going to Yale, Harvard, getting these degrees, and then robbing people blind and laughing about it. Enron, the smartest men in the room. That's what happened in Enron. They were laughing about the money they were robbing from old people. There's transcripts of their phone calls, laughing about grandmas that were losing their shirts, paying for the high cost of energy in California because they were being completely robbed blind by immoral people. Commerce without morality is an extension of business of character, knowledge without character. Commerce without morality. The foundation of Islam is character. إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I was only sent to perfect character. That's the foundation of our religion, inculcating character. That comes from examples. That comes from living in communities where character is practiced on a daily basis. Generosity, courage, modesty, chastity, love of knowledge. Science without humanity. We've got studies here on dogs. Seriously, on dogs and cats, and I'm all for taking care of dogs and cats. When the Muslims had thriving civilizations, they had awqaf for dogs and cats. We know that. They had awqaf. Even in Fes, they had a waqf for stray dogs to feed them. But when you're taking care of dogs and cats, and you've got human babies dying, something is seriously wrong with your priorities, because in a hospital, you have what's called triaging. Every emergency doctor knows and nurse knows about triaging. If a patient comes in and their limbs off and they're bleeding out, you don't sit next to that patient talking to the guy with the headache and asking him, is it sharp or is it cutting? What type of headache do you have? You take care of the man who's hemorrhaging to death. Triaging, priorities, science. We've got all of our talented scientists developing weapons of mass destruction for enemies that are created out of thin air, enemies that are more like characters out of a James Bond film, living in caves somewhere, boogeymen that are conjured up to scare people. Are you scared yet? That was a headline on Time magazine. We need our scientists to actually be in the pursuit of excellence, not for profit, not for the Nobel Peace Prize. Fi sabilillah. Fi sabilillah. It's a completely different set. Religion without sacrifice. Imam Zayd was talking about. Can you half submit? Udkhulu fi salmi kaffa. Enter into Islam totally and completely. Don't be half-hearted, half-baked. You can't have half submission. It's called nifaq. That's what half submission's called in our religion. It's called nifaq. La yaqumuna illa kusala. They just get up there lazy. They do it half-heartedly. And finally, politics without principle. Politics without principle. Barack Obama is from ancestry. His father was from Kenya. Malaria is a major problem in Kenya. It's a personal problem for him. But when you're in a political machine that eats at principle, when you can't speak the truth because you're so afraid of what the spin doctors are going to do, Fox News will turn everything upside down. And so will ABC and CBC and NBC and all of the other ones. They just have different degrees of it. But I'll give you an example of politics without principle. When you don't deal with tort reform in malpractice cases, that's politics without principle. Because the tort lawyers in this country are so powerful, they don't want caps on malpractice suits, which raises up the cost of everything. It forces doctors to do unnecessary procedures, which elevates the cost of health care, but they don't want to talk about that because it's politics without principle. Instead of looking at the principle, and we have caps in Islam. The Prophet put caps on a human life. No life can be judged by wealth, and that's the point. The higher you go doesn't make it any less or more. But the cap is a cap because people can't afford. If you make things so exorbitant, everything goes up with it. We have caps. A finger has a certain amount. A tooth has a certain amount. An ear has a certain amount. It's already done. Allah did it. The Sharia did it. We don't need tort reform in Islam. But they need it in this country. Politics without principle. Socrates said in the Apology to the people of Athens, if you stop worrying about the interests of the state and start worrying about the interests of your souls, the state will take care of itself. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.